Counting me, we have 7 living mayors, current or former. And I just think it's really fun to have the 4 that we are able to have here today. And we will have lunch after we have this availability. And then they will be back to join us around 4:30 this afternoon to be introduced again and make a few comments. I, as the current mayor, am flattered to be the mayor during the 125th anniversary. It's an important day for the community. It's an important day, I think, for all of the former mayors, knowing they are part of the history. In addition to that, while we all think of history sometimes as what's happened in the past, we're actually making history today because we are celebrating our 125th anniversary. And people someday down the road will hear about the 125th anniversary celebration, and we will become part of past history instead of current history. I've asked each of the mayors to make a few comments today, and then I know we have some questions that we'd like to have asked and have these folks answer them. So we're not going to do chronological order. I'm mayor, so I get to choose who goes first. And Laura's sitting right next to me. So Laura, if you'd just like to make a few comments.
Well, thank you, Mayor. This is a wonderful time, and thinking about 125 years, we needed some rule to govern this town, and it came about that we formed the mayor's form of government. And guess what? We only had a part-time mayor up until this man, Harve Harrison, was carrying on with no benefits running this city. We decided we need a full-time mayor, we took it to the people, and now we have the full-time mayor's position. And to tell how far we've come, some years ago we were talking with Francis Anderson, former Francis Anderson, for which the facility is named. And we're sitting there talking, saying about Edmonds and all this and that. She says, oh yes, she says, I remember when we were little girls, she says, and the Indians used to come running down over Maplewood and down through the hills to the water. And our parents always said, well, just stay away and just look at them and be good, and they won't bother you. So here we are, from that scene to Indians in our lifetime that we can talk about. So at any rate, here we are, and it's wonderful, and this very museum is our basis and our legacy.
Well, Mike Cooper decided to volunteer next.
I'm not sure I can top that historical lesson, but thank you, Mayor Earling, for having us here today, and happy birthday to the city of Edmonds. It's been a great pleasure for me to live in the community for so many years, and I'm thinking back on some of our family moved here when Gordon Maxwell was mayor, and then Harve was mayor soon after that, and so I grew up with all these fine folks as mayors of the cities. In fact, grew up with Laura's 2 sons, and so enjoyed being in the city all those years, and then finally, after other political offices that I held, got an opportunity to be mayor of my hometown, and the only one, I have the dubious honor of the only one here being the appointed mayor, not the elected mayor of the city, but I enjoyed the 2 years that I spent here and saw a lot of change in those 2 years, as I did over the last 50 years that I've lived in the community.
Next is Bart Fahey.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here for this celebration as well. I feel like I was one of the new kids on the block because Edmonds has only been my hometown for 47 years. My husband and I brought our children here to raise them because of the wonderful atmosphere here in Edmonds, and we have loved it since the day we moved in here. I certainly never thought for a moment that I would wind up being the mayor of the city, but when I had that opportunity, it was one of the greatest joys and pleasures of my life. I love history. I'm so thankful we have this museum to recall the growth of our city over all these 125 years. And I was just talking with our current Mayor Dave today about this really significant challenges that we face for the future, constantly keeping up with technology. When I came into office, I recall that we were barely using our computers and the internet, and had not really developed the ways for people to interface with our government. And now we have that capability, and people can check in constantly with what's going on just by going to our Edmonds City website. We've managed to accomplish to have a marvelous city hall that was initiated under Laura's watch and completed under mine, and then we moved forward and got our additional 2 new fire stations and our wonderful police station that I know the police officers really have appreciated, enjoyed. So it's been really fun to be a part of the growth and the forward progress of this city. It was 15 years ago that I left office, and the mayors that have followed have continued in that track and have continued to bring the services to our citizens that we love and enjoy, while still continuing to keep this our wonderful small town city of Edmonds that everybody loves to come here for. So great to be here as a part of the 125th celebration.
And our final mayor to make some comments today actually took his position in 1967, as I recall, or pretty close.
Yeah.
And Harve Harrison was our mayor for 16 years, and so we all follow his example as to being a quality mayor. Harve, some comments from you.
Okay, now I put it all in writing, so it's going to be accurate, I hope.
Got it?
Pardon?
Look, there's that way, so get your face.
Oh, look that way?
There's the camera.
All right. Okay. And this is how the community has changed. So that's what I wanted to get accurate. Okay. My little stint in City Hall, or city government, started in '59 at the age of 39. I was on the council twice. And I was on the city council for 8 years. No, wait a minute. Let me get my glasses out here. Okay, at that time, City Hall was in the basement of the existing museum. Downstairs was City Hall. And the library was on the second floor. And at that time, my wife and I had the pleasure of shopping in 4 downtown grocery stores, 3 downtown drugstores, 3 women's dress shops, a men's wear, a shoe shop, a shoe repair, 10-cent store, a theater, and an ice cream shop was next door to it, and 4 taverns, and we didn't frequent them much. And a travel agency, and lots of eating places. Also downtown had a Ford and a Chevrolet dealership, and 4 gas stations. After the council experience, the mayor's job seemed to be available, so I threw my hat in the ring 4 times. And after that job, Larry Naughton began wearing the hat. My job as mayor ended in '83, and my council mayor experience will be cherished forever.
So I think at this point, if we have questions, I'm sure our former mayors would like to have a chance to answer your questions. So who's asking?
Well, hi everybody. Some of you, I think you all know me, but maybe not Harve. I'm Larry Vogel, and I've lived here in Edmonds for better than 20 years now. And since I retired from my real job, I've been working what has now become the favorite job I've ever had, working with Teresa on My Edmonds News and writing articles and taking pictures and covering the events in this town. It's helped me to feel really close to this community. I totally love the place, and I echo all the great things that you folks have said about it. One of the things I've noticed in looking at the history of our town is like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I'd like you to speak to what was the big issue during your administration as mayor, and what do you see as the big issues today and how they compare?
Yeah.
Could we start with Mayor Harrison?
You know, well, my hearing might be a little bit off. What did you just get to ask?
Okay, I'd like to know what the big issue was during your administration. If you could think back to when you were mayor, what's the one thing that really stands out to you that was the big deal?
Oh.
And what do you see as the big deal today?
The biggest thing while I was mayor, huh? I think acquiring lots of park properties. And I give Gordon Maxwell credit for that. He was the guiding light. And so we acquired lots of park properties during that time, including all the waterfront. So I think that's probably the best contribution.
Well, it's certainly a legacy that we all enjoy today.
Yeah.
So what do you see today as the big issues facing Edmonds, the big issue?
The challenge of today? I don't know. I don't know what it would be, the challenge.
Well, there's plenty of, we'll get to the current mayor in a little bit and we'll get his take.
I think what we want to do is just maintain the village atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
You know.
I think,
But
speaking for myself as someone who lives here, I value the ambiance of this place. I value the feel of this town.
But
It's what keeps me here.
The little village that I read about in my letter, it's gone. It's just, it's not here anymore. It's all changed.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Fahey, would you like to tell us what the biggest issue was while you were mayor?
Actually, there were a couple of them, and I have to tread carefully because part of it flowed from Laura's administration into mine. So I was actually on city council for part of the time that Laura was mayor, and during that time we started the process of trying to come up with the solutions for a new city hall and then police and fire stations. And that was a challenge for quite a while because we kept trying to figure out how to build on the site that's just to the north of us where the police and fire stations are and put a city hall there too. And it became obvious we couldn't do that. So we were really fortunate that the business owners of the building right across the street from us that was originally a professional office building agreed to sell us that building, so we had the capacity to create a city hall immediately connected to that other site. And then the next challenge was passing a bond issue to have the money to build the new police and fire stations. And I remember it was said that Edmonds hadn't passed a bond issue in I don't know how many years, and so we had to convince the electorate that it would be a good investment to fund that bond issue and allow us to build 2 fire stations and the police station. And the other thing that challenge we faced, and it was huge during Laura's time and again flowed over, was the whole issue of possibly relocating the ferry and what we were going to do about grade separation. And I bet Laura will talk more about that because that was one of her real hot buttons. But as Dave and I were discussing that issue today, that's a case of, as you say, the more things change, the more they remain the same because we're still facing that challenge today.
And what do you see as the biggest issue today?
I think the whole concept of economic development, and we need to keep our city viable somehow. Listening to Harve talk about all the businesses that were here and the fact that we have nice little boutique businesses here now, but we don't really have all the wonderful service businesses. Like, thank God we still managed to have a grocery store here, but it is sad to see that we have reached the point where we have very few of the absolute necessary services, and we have to go to other communities to be able to purchase the goods and things that we need, which then cuts back on our tax base and causes problems for trying to run the city. So it's really too bad that we are located so far off the grid now and away from I-5 that it's not an attractive location. I do think that we need to try and do everything we can to bring more business into Highway 99. That's the best option in terms of businesses that would provide the kinds of goods and services we really want and give us a better tax base.
Thank you very much. Mayor Cooper, you're up.
Only one, huh? Well, I think aside from how tall buildings are going to be downtown and a sustainable budget, the thing that I think was a big issue during my brief 2-year tenure was our efforts to do some energy conservation and become a new energy city in Edmonds, which was something we're very proud of, and solar panels on the Francis Anderson Center, and electric car charging stations downtown, and our fleet being converted over to hybrid and electric vehicles in our city. Fleet was one of the big issues going on, again, besides the budget, which I came in office sort of at the tail end of the collapse when we were just starting to get our fingers in the handholds and try to climb out of that and still making budget cuts. Today's big issue, I haven't been inside the city council chamber since I left office, but I do follow a little bit about what's going on, and I know that I think the budget is a big issue in the community, and as we continue to try to find some sustainable ways in economic development is certainly one of those. And I think the other big issue that's still continuing to go on, and it dates back to Barb and Laura's time as mayor, is the waterfront and how we're going to manage a transportation infrastructure in the community, as well as have a safe access to the waterfront as the north-south rail corridor becomes an increasing transportation corridor and the ferry gets busier, and we've got people in the community who need to get to the waterfront to shop and enjoy the recreation on the waterfront. So I think that in the next few years that's going to be a major issue in the community.
Mayor Hall, what was the big stuff during your administration?
Well, mighty big, and it still is today. We have the train situation, we have the ferry situation, and we were working on, and Senator Maria Cantwell was quite instrumental in helping us get monies to explore moving the ferry dock. And we were working with the tribes, the Indian tribes and all, because of the fishing rights, and we were just getting there. But then as time goes on, Unical was talking with another few developers, and you noticed where that went. But the irony is, we could have cured what people are yammering over now, and that is the loading of the ferry dock and coming on down Pine Street and all, and we wouldn't be worrying about the access to the other side, to the waterfront side, with the trains coming and going. We would have that access. And then there's another balancing act. You know, we have this beautiful setting, the mountains, the sound, and our coastline. And I was determined we were not going to let that be overly built. Well, lo and behold, one Sunday, I'm reading the Sunday paper, and I read in there where there's this Cross-Sound Transportation Commission. I'm going, well, no one talked to me about that. They were going to be dealing with the ferry issue. So I thought, well, my goodness. So I came to my office on Monday and called Brian Sullivan, who was mayor of Mukilteo, and I said, Brian, what's this? And he says, I don't know what you're talking about. I says, that's what I figured. So he says, Laura, I'm so busy, will you look into it? I picked up and this was my first year in office, I picked up the phone, called Olympia. Oh yes, they have this commission who's going to explore the ferry traffic, and it'll be meeting on Wednesday. And she says, we just appointed the last person, 21st person. I says, you're going to have 22, I'm going to be there. So I drove there and got on commission and all that type thing, and then we started discussing it. And so that's where we are, but over years now you see that Mukilteo is now benefiting from that, which will be fine also, because it is a traffic system that we need to worry about in the state. So, and then one other thing, through those committee meetings, I heard they were going to use that lot south of the ferry, which now is a park. They were going to park 200 cars on there. I said, by darn. So we went to another meeting or two, And I talked with the Anderson family who owned the land, and they were like benefactors to the city because the state offered them more than what I could. We had nickels and dimes, and now you see we did get that, and the Andersons cooperated, so we have that green spot there rather than 200 cars on our waterfront. So I feel very good about that.
Very good. Well, thank you. Finally, it comes down to our current mayor, Dave. And I want to change things up a little bit for you, since you're the guy who's occupying the chair now. You know what? If I could get you to move away from the window, it would sure make the lighting a little bit better. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Mayor Earling, we're celebrating now 125 years today. This was the day that our founder, George Brackett, got the notice back from the Secretary of State saying that we are now an official town. What do you see as facing us in the next 125 years? Let's turn that scope way up.
Well, I can't predict what will be important in the 124th and 125th year of your question, which is another 125 years. I think one of the major challenges that we face in our, not the beneficiary of any big box stores, we're not the beneficiary of any shopping malls, so we have to be more creative in ways in which we can fund our long-term needs. And I think some of the former mayors and myself have been successful in trying to change the sort of energy that we have in the community, and I think we've been very successful with that. I always use the example, and I will use again. If you came to the city of Edmonds 5, 6, 7 years ago, after 6 o'clock, you could park anywhere you wanted to. And we just simply had, quite bluntly, a lot of vacant spaces, not as many restaurants as we perhaps at one time had. And with some of the business emphasis we've been able to do, we now have a different and renewed sense of vitality. There's an energy in the city. You come downtown now after 6 o'clock, and sometimes you actually have to look for a parking place.
Sometimes?
Because of that, though, we are able to generate more revenue. That is, sales tax comes in. It's one of the most important income sources the city has. And our business has gone up dramatically in that particular case. As our land values and house values continue to raise here, we are seeing an increased property tax, which is sometimes tough for some of the community to deal with. But nonetheless, it's an important source of income for the city, getting back to the fact that we have this high quality of life that we want to keep and maintain. So that, to me, is one of the real benefits, the new energy that we've got. And I know whoever follows me as mayor and some of the council members will continue to face that challenge. Unless we can figure new ways to create business, it will be an ongoing challenge for the community, because we know our expenses are in fact going to go up. It happens. So that's one thing. Another thing that we've heard, and what I want to think about, maybe not all of your 125 years, Larry, but at least in some period not too far away, we need to resolve the issue of the waterfront access, both to and from. And the project that we had on the books a few years ago would have taken care of the ferry situation. They would have unloaded and been able to go directly up the hill and go into SR 104. That was known as the Edmonds Crossing Project. That doesn't solve the traffic problem that we have with the access going back and forth to and from the waterfront. Right now, we have about 40 trains a day coming through town. That shuts down access to and from the waterfront about an hour and a half in a 24-hour period. The projection is we'll have 100+ trains by 2030. The staff predicts that we'll be shutting down access to and from the waterfront at that point of 4 hours in a 24-hour period. That's simply not acceptable to the community. It's not acceptable to the region. It's not acceptable to the state, because remember, we interrupt a state highway every time that we shut down access to the waterfront. So we've just been recently granted some money to, yes, once again, study the issue to see if we can figure out how to resolve it, because I think long-term, that's really one of the challenges that we face. The other one I'll mention and not spend as much time on is the need to redevelop and enhance Highway 99. The council has recently made some good decisions on how we can bring in affordable housing up there, about how it will be easier for businesses to locate there. And remember, that's a real economic driver also. The car dealerships, many people complain, oh, we don't need another car dealership. Guess what, folks? They're the economic engine for Highway 99 and frankly for much of the city of Edmonds. So I think those are two issues we've got to face, and I know I've rambled, but you asked the question, I get to give the answer.
My bad on that one. Well, unless Teresa has something, and she
I
might
do.
very well.
I have one question.
Well, let's let Teresa go.
Okay, the question is, Teresa Whipple from My Edmonds News, by the way, for those of you who don't know who I am. I wonder, we are dedicating a time capsule today that has selections from current fourth graders in Edmonds, about what they want to be opened up in another 25 years. It's going to be out here in front of the museum. My question is that if each of you could choose one item to be placed in that time capsule, what would it be that you would want people to open up in 25 years and say, oh, so that's what Edmonds was like in 2015? One item. Should I start with Mayor Harrison?
No, just because I really didn't follow the question.
Okay. We have a time capsule
Yes.
that's going to be buried out here in the front of the museum.
It's already there.
Yep, and the items will be put there. We're going to unveil those today. Fourth graders from Edmonds chose the items.
Uh-huh.
If you were going to pick an item, what would that be?
Oh, okay. I'll think about it.
Do you want to think about it and go on to the next? Okay.
I was going to say, this is the kind of question we should have been prepared in advance.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be as much fun.
I know. I guess, since I know time capsules tend to be small, it's going to have to be something really little, but I think it would be symbolic to have some kind of one of our little computer disks or computer chips that held the programs that we are currently using in the city, so that when it's opened up in the future, they'll go, did they really manage to run the city that way? It's just like looking at the old books from years ago and how the city was run for so many years, where all the minutes were handwritten and so on and so forth, and the evolution. And the whole computer technology, it'll morph into something else, and we'll be probably using something else. So it'd be fun to see, for people that see that time capsule, how we operated that way in the year 125.
Very good, very good. Mayor Cooper?
Well, I wish I would have had a little more time to think about this, but I think just off the top of my head, because and Mayor Earling mentioned the great selection of nightlife and restaurants and bars in the town that we have here now. And I think a menu from all of our great downtown restaurants would be really fun to open up in 25 years and see what we had here in this part of our economy and part of our history. We'd have to include Dick's Drive-In in that too, though, not just downtown.
I do believe they did include, students did include something from Dick's as well as a Revelations yogurt cup.
Yes.
Just so you know. That's there. Okay.
Maybe all the different brew pubs and all the different brews that we have would be fun to have.
You took mine.
Not like a bottle of brew would fit,
Mayor Hall.
It'd be interesting to
Well,
compare the prices.
Cooper took mine per se, but if we're dealing with children and all, there has to be some memento of our old fire truck and that type thing, and perhaps one that has a picture of children on that truck, because every class has just enjoyed that so much.
Okay, great. Mayor Harrison, did you think about
I'm
something?
going to yield to Mike's.
Oh, okay. Should we just say ditto? Does that work? Okay, very good. Mayor Earling?
I guess what I'd like to have, and I think it's a long shot, but I'd like to have a photo of 40 or 50 people in town, picked at random, and find out that there's this incredible diversity of age in our community. We are known as I guess, a retirement community in part, but wouldn't it be fabulous if we could have a photo of today? And it's evolving, folks. If you come downtown now in the evening, you see younger families coming to our community. And that's historic because we need to, in fact, plan for the next generation. Odds are against finding that picture, however.
Maybe we can take one today.
Maybe, that'd be fun.
I don't have any more. Larry, do you have any more questions?
All I would say is if any of our mayors would like to add something to what's already been said, if there's something else you want to say.
Sure,
We're taking
I-
the disc out of this camera and putting it in that time capsule, you know.
Don't give them too much time.
I would just like to say, we are always planning for the future and all, but pinch ourselves and hit the here and now. Our town has evolved in a wonderful form, and as Mayor Earling said, we are now getting younger people, younger families to carry on for the rest of us. And we've all done a pretty good job of keeping the village atmosphere, not allowing the third story to be put on every store in our little business community. And so it's really a fabulous place. The here and now, let's appreciate it and say a job well done.
How about your advice to the next mayor, whoever that may be?
We'll come in with some real good ideas and a bucket of money.
And be really good at consensus building. I was just going to comment that I think our town is particularly blessed because of all the different organizations that exist here in this town that strictly through volunteerism for the most part foster so many of the things that we hold dear. And we've referred to this historical museum. We're very thankful that the city allows us to use this building, and this organization and this building is a tremendous asset. I'm thankful for it, and it's a wonderful resource to learn about the history and visit it. I think of the wonderful arts community that we have and our arts festival that takes place every year that brings so many people to this community. The Chamber of Commerce and the Taste of Edmonds that's been an icon here for so many years. Going back a little bit, the whole farmers market that started when I was mayor and has grown to the most amazing driver for this community, bringing so many thousands of people in every week. Those are all so important to the current economic trend, and I think that they will continue to be huge assets for us in the future and need to be praised and thanked for everything they do for this community.
And I would just say how humbled I am to be among this group of people, and thank them for their public service, and the two mayors that are not here, and each one of them, and many of them, have touched my life personally in some way. And I shared with some friends of mine that Mayor Naughton at a point gave me my first opportunity to serve the community on the planning board. Mayor Hawkinson and I switched office buildings, and Mayor Earling, with a little help from the voters, encouraged me to retire. And I want to thank you for that too, by the way. But I think it's a great group of people, and each one of them have given so much to the community over their time here, both as their time as mayor and their time as community activist. And I think the city is fortunate to have this group of people and the people that will follow us, because I can't think of a mayor, while we all might differ in our political views in one way or another, every mayor that I've had the experience of being around in this community has cared deeply for the city and for the history of the city and the future of the city.
Thank you. Last chance? Anybody? Okay.
Yeah, I challenge Laura to a race in our waters.
But we won't record that
That's why we closed down the street out here.
I thought we should just get the two of them out there in the middle of the street dance.